Hey everyone, welcome back. Someone recently told me to take a look at Tatsu. I don't remember who it was, unfortunately, but it was a fun experiment. In the current meta, Tatsu doesn't really have a proper slot, because Pennant is a much superior heavy attack two-handed Nikana, and Tenet Livia is a superior light attack two-handed Nikana. Granted, Tatsu was the first two-handed Nikana we ever got, and was actually quite solid at the time. This was due in part also to the Wise Razor stance. Once upon a time, this stance was actually good and flowed well, but DE has since swapped the first and last moves on the neutral E, and now it feels like garbage. The delays on the early swings of the combo really ruin the flow of combat, as there's no lead up to a wind up when you're just starting the combo. It's not like it's a heavy ghoul saw. Personally, I'd rather not use the stance if I can avoid it. Granted, the Tatsu itself is still a decent weapon, boasting usable base crit, average crit multiplier, and high status. It actually had usable slash weighting. It's only around 32% slash though, but heavy attacks can also redeem it since force slash procs hide there. Again, Pennant is a better heavy attack two-handed Nikana, and even Livia boasts better raw damage scaling due to its Tenet bonus. The stance only has a 200% scaling slash proc out of its entire 1700% base damage rotation across its neutral E, and isn't particularly impressive on normalized damage per second either. But there's one interesting redeeming factor. Upon taking a closer look at the Guncio spreadsheet, the version 2.0 mind you, which you can find down in the description and pinned comment, it appears the projectiles of the Tatsu have multiplicative eclipse scaling with condition overload. This means the projectiles can even end up doing more damage than the swing itself. Ironically, a 12x heavy build would still surpass this because, well, heavy attacks do at least equal damage to slat attacks, but would also benefit from the 12x multiplier. The real test was to see if a generic spin attack to launch the projectiles was enough to kill a Demolyst in one go. The answer? Yes, it did. Even on Steel Path, but it wasn't completely free. The damage is there, but you need full armor strip, meaning you could probably kill the demo just by swinging your Tatsu another 4 or 5 times, or just one-shotting it on a heavy attack build. But this means you don't need to build around heavies at all. You can just spam light attacks on everything. Is it extremely practical? I mean, it's pretty easy to use and functional, so yes, and you don't have to deal with heavy attack animations, but for scaling reasons, a heavy attack setup would still be much more consistent for taking it into endurance, though keep in mind using it this way guarantees the particle will one-shot anything instantly that isn't a Demolyst, doing into the millions easily when they don't have armor, and tens to hundreds of thousands on single hits otherwise. A Riven would push this much further, but I still don't think the particles will scale properly into endurance. So let's see how this plays out, shall we? I'm going to start off with a Tatsu build this time, as that's where it all began. It's an interesting build. Clearly, we have CO here, so we're using primers. This actually works out really well against both Demolyst and Fodder this way. For Fodder, if you just spam E, condition overload works like base damage, so even if your Vex armor and Chroma falls, you're still able to easily kill enemies. Against a Demolyst, CO works like Eclipse instead when throwing our Tatsu projectiles, so it will multiply Chroma's Vex armored base damage buff. Prime Smite Rainier is there in the flex slot because there isn't really much left we could run, besides maybe Prime's Fury, but this mod is extremely important for allowing us to reliably one-shot the demo. It's a straight up 55% final damage multiplier. Blood Rush is important because we need it to reach 100% crit. This guarantees the Tatsu projectiles will crit, which is where we're getting all our damage from. Gladiator Might doubles up with Organ Shatter to give us some extra crit damage and crit chance scaling from the set bonus and our other flex slot, Sacrificial Steel. This makes it easier to reach yellows on your particles without having to reach 12x combo, but if you're confident you'll be sitting at 12x, I would recommend putting Molten Impact here instead, as having both Blood Rush and Gladiator Might on the build allows your particles to reach 104% crit chance at 12x. This gives it even more scaling and allows you to actually go quite a few rounds into disruption before the particles stop one-shotting. Ironically, you can also just follow up the slide with a heavy if it doesn't die, and since we're on Zenric with the energizing dash on our energy economy, you'd also only lose 40% of your 12x stack due to Innermite's built-in 60% heavy attack efficiency. You could also alternatively slot Focus Energy instead of Molten Impact for another 40% efficiency, and you'll cap it out at 90%, but then you're just making a heavy attack Tatsu. I don't know, it's up to you. That's all it would take to get a heavy attack setup that would scale much further, but today's fun was trying to see how far we can push the slat attacks. So let's look at that Chroma. Why did I take Chroma again? Because the particles might get Eclipse multiplicative scaling from condition overload, but if you don't have any base damage to back it up, you're just multiplying a very small number to get another small number. Vex Armor fixes that by both giving us a massive base damage value and saving a slot on Tatsu so we don't need to slot the Prime Pressure Point family mods. Obviously this means we're going Giga Strength. This looks pretty reminiscent of a selfish Chroma build, and that's exactly what it is, except we had to give up the Prime Continuity slot to fit Seeking Shuriken Augment to reliably strip the Demolyst armor since we're DPSing with a melee slot, and Tatsu projectiles need full strip to kill reliably, which means we can't bring Vastalok. That's also why we built Pure Viral on the Tatsu, which has bonus damage against flesh types itself regardless of the status effect. Vigorous Swap to swap stuff faster, and also because Tatsu projectiles are considered weapons, meaning Vigorous Swap does buff them an extra 165% base damage, but honestly this pales in comparison to Vex Armor's 874% base damage on the build. We don't need any range because Seeking Shuriken is unaffected by it and we're buffing ourselves only. This build especially isn't for endurance and only early steel path because we don't even have rolling guard. We do have a heat chroma for health though via elemental ward, which will tank nicely with the armor bonus from the scorn buff in Vex Armor. If your fashion doesn't allow you to have heat as a default from your emissive, then you can just toggle elements with your 1, which is the reason why I subsumed Seeking Shuriken over Effigy instead. Energy economy is maintained with Equilibrium and Energize. Equilibrium because I'm bringing that Panzer Can as always, where Viral Quill spreads across the entire room, and Synth Deconstruct Pet Assist will give me tons of health orbs. Synth Fiber lets me pick them up even at full HP, and convert them into energy because of Equilibrium. Also Panzer because infinite cat lives, that should be obvious by now, with Martyr Symbiosis. But back to Chroma. The other arcane is Strike, to give our Tatsu much needed attack speed on spamming E since we will be using that to kill regular enemies and I didn't mod it on the weapon. And also Prime Sure-Footed for utility, as well as stopping self knockback from Epitaph. You can bring whatever you want for your primary, maybe even Mutilus Quanta to shoot your slide attacks through and buff the Tatsu projectiles even more, but what's important is your primary weapon brings a dexterity arcane like this Epitaph. Dexterity will give your Tatsu an extra 7.5 seconds combo duration each and stacks for 15 seconds if you have both. Our total duration is now 20 seconds, and makes it much easier to keep combo. This is a generic primer Epitaph build with one extra element. Heat to prime for Tatsu's projectiles. The heat will also help CC enemies alongside the innate cold proc slowing, blast reducing their accuracy, pistol ammo mutation because you'll be spamming this a lot. If you don't want to worry ever about losing your combo completely, then I guess you can take Nerimon as well. And there you go. Regular steel path enemies, just hack away with your Tatsu. You can even slide for the particles if you want since it's super easy to get the 5 particles camped back with 5 kills and prepare for the demo. The particles proc radiation as well and before damage calculations, meaning it's self-priming. Find a demo? Make sure you have 5 particle charges as shown in your HUD. Wait for the nullifier pulse and spam Epitaph until it happens. Then throw Seeking Shuriken and slide attack into the demo to kill it instantly. Easy peasy. You really don't want to be nullied because then you lose all your Vex Armor scaling, but yeah, it's pretty fun and even I was surprised how well it worked. Tick off one more meme use for Tatsu's projectiles, I guess. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible, like I did with the new war and this cool new fun stuff alongside the 4 new augments. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis, so don't miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching and see you all next time.